Welcome everyone to tonight's workshop. My name is Kylie Bello and I'll be your tech support for the evening. And tonight's workshop is how families can support early development. We have Cheryl Gelber here, the Director of Strategic Clinical Initiatives for the New York Center for Child Development, presenting for us this evening. Just a little bit about Include. For more than 3 decades, we've been helping young people with disabilities, their families, and professionals. We offer workshops, a helpline, and resources, which you've adapted to respond to coronavirus-related issues. Thank you so much and enjoy tonight's presentation.
Thank you so much, Kylie. Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl Gelber, and I am the Director of Strategic Clinical Initiatives at New York Center for Child Development and New York Center for Infants and Toddlers. These sister agencies are an organization that provide early intervention and preschool special education services to children in New York City who are under 5, who are recognized as having a developmental delay or diagnosed disorder or condition of some type. For many years, I've been working as a special education teacher for young children and progressed into providing supervision and training, and now working with various departments on how to support both families and children in the types of services that we provide. I also have taught at Hunter College as an adjunct instructor for the master's level special education program. So I'm excited to share with you some of the things that I have learned in my practice and helping children and families that we work with, and hopefully be able to give you some tips and some strategies to carry on with you. A little bit of a disclaimer, we only have an hour and I probably could spend weeks talking about this topic. So my goal is to touch upon some areas and at least inspire you and give you some things to think about and carry with you as you leave, and think about how you could integrate these into your everyday life. I know that we are in such an unprecedented time with COVID-19, and our routines and such are totally out of the norm of what we would typically experience. So there's a lot of these factors that we have to consider when we're thinking about how we can help our young kids and our young kids with varying abilities. And so I will be thinking about that and addressing that as I talk about this topic, as well as various ways that we can support children in different ways and families in different ways, considering the climate that we are in right now. So a little bit about our agenda. There's some key areas that I want to touch upon, and I'm going to try my very best to be very simple and straightforward and realistic and practical about the things that we talk about. However, another disclaimer, there is some theory involved here. There is some background information that I think would be really important for everyone to think about as we think about what we're going to do to help our kids. And so the agenda that I put forward here is a combination of both the why, so why is all of this important, and the how do we do it? And so the way that I'll address the why is thinking about the importance of relationships, positive interactions, and why that matters for young kids. We're going to think about the brain. It's going to get a little nerdy for a little bit, and we'll talk about how all this impacts the brain. We'll talk about play, the importance of play, what is play, different stages of play, and then segue into natural environment teaching. So what is it? Understanding the how about it. And then what are those teachable moments, with a special emphasis on communication, as I know that that was an area that we had in our planning of this conversation. Emphasized was a need for some families, is how can we help emphasize communication skills in young children during the everyday routines and activities. Okay, so I'm going to give a moment of pause there and give my colleague an opportunity who's translating on the other side to do so. And I'm also going to give an opportunity for attendees to ask some questions if need be in the Q&A box. And any questions that you have, I welcome. Like Kylie said, I may not be able to answer all of them, but I'm hopeful that we can address some major questions that might come up that I feel would be helpful to the majority of the group. Okay. Okay, I have gotten the clear to keep going. All right. So the first piece of our understanding of development and early development is the importance of healthy relationships. What we know about the success of development is how well children attach to another human being. What is that emotional bond that that child creates with another person or with a caregiver? Attachment is one of the most important foundational concepts that children need to have in order to have healthy development across all areas. And so we really emphasize in early childhood development the importance of attachment, the importance of having a bond with a caregiver, and a caregiver who is responsive to that child, a caregiver who is sensitive, is responsive to their needs for food, for warmth, for comfort, attention. You know, there's all kinds of ways that we can have children attached to us through those activities. But the key piece being that healthy development really hinges on this idea of a healthy attachment, a healthy emotional bond with a caregiver. There can be lots of different types of caregivers. There can be grandparents, there can be babysitters, there can be, mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles. There's lots of caregivers in a child's life. And it's with those caregivers having that strong emotional bond that healthy development really stems from. And so when we talk about this, we really emphasize that healthy development really comes from a healthy attachment with primary caregivers. So what are some different types of healthy attachment or healthy relationships? Well, there's lots of differences. And we see that across lots of different cultures, lots of different family structures, family routines, and abilities. There's lots of different ways that families can create healthy relationships and healthy attachments with their children. And there is no one best way, but that all kinds of ways are impactful and important for helping children to establish that emotional bond with a caregiver. I put some pictures up here, just some samples, but to give you an idea that there is such variation. It could be playing an instrument with your child. It could be, in this one case, decorating a Christmas tree, which we're coming up on the season soon. It could just be tickles and hugs, reading a story, singing. There are lots of ways that families establish attachment, that families establish those relationships. And again, no one best way. There are lots of different ways and lots of ways that are impactful. I like to pose this question because I think we think about this idea of attachment and emotional bond. It helps to think about, well, how did I bond with my caregivers? What did I do when I was a young child? What do I remember? What were your own experiences? I can remember times with my dad sitting in a rocking chair and singing a Cabbage Patch Kid song. And I probably was only 2 at the time, but I just remember that experience as being so powerful and connecting with my dad. And that's one example of how I was able, or how my dad and I created this healthy, a start to a really healthy relationship, an emotional bond. I can remember making blueberry muffins with my grandmother. I remember exactly how she taught me to measure. I remember her teaching me how to carefully mix and to dump the ingredients in the bowl. I remember this. And it was those experiences that really helped me to create a bond with my caregivers. So I encourage you to think about, what were some of the experiences that you remember in your life? We've all kinds of them across all types of cultures and people and environments and abilities. And that, what were those that stuck with you, that help you kind of think about what you would do with your children? And that all of them are important. I'm going to take a minute to pause for my colleague who's translating, and also if there's any questions. I do see one here that says, asking if we're going to get any copies of this. I can certainly provide a copy of this PowerPoint presentation to those that include, and then I could look into if they can distribute that to those who've registered today. Okay. Okay. So I stopped sharing screen for a minute because I did want to show you a video. And this video, I think, I don't like to reinvent the wheel. I think this video is a really great example of how how important these interactions are with children and the impact that they can have on their development. So I am going to share screen, which is a video of this.
Conditions where their brain architecture.
Okay, here we go.
More and more of our children are growing up under conditions where their brain architecture is threatened by the experiences they are having or the experiences that they are not getting.
The first 4 years of a child's life are crucial to her later development. It's during those years that the brain has its largest period of growth in the areas of hearing, vision, language, and communication. However, many children are not getting the basic care required to support this phase of their development.
Especially in these times, parents get busy. It's easy to plop a child in front of a television set. Parents need to be very aware that engagement is one of the most important things that they can do for their child.
What's missing for many young children is something called serve and return.
Would you like the smell too?
Serve and return describes the fundamental adult-child interactions, which help a baby reach her full potential. Serve and return is something as basic as playing peekaboo, or adults talking to an infant as they go about their daily routine.
Babies are actually learning words. They're forming language. The part of their brain that is able to produce language is working long before the first word is heard.
It's simple things like getting on the floor and playing with kids, looking into their eyes when you're speaking to them, reading to them, singing to them. What that interaction does is it provides a solid framework for kids.
Serve and return doesn't always mean verbal interaction between an adult and child, especially in infancy. It could occur during feeding or bathing. As long as the adult is responsive, the child's brain is getting the stimulation it needs to develop.
So the brain will formulate an idea. I'm going to smile. And smiles, and someone responds to that smile, and the very process of organizing that smile now gets confirmed with a positive feedback. And that confirms those neurons. It says, oh, you sent a good signal. This is a pathway we're going to keep.
Research shows that a child surrounded by caring and responsive adults will start elementary school with better social skills, better emotional regulation, and a better ability to focus than a child lacking in positive adult attention. While it may not be readily apparent, children in infancy are developing the parts of the brain that are crucial to their later social and academic lives.
1, 2.
Moreover, science shows that it's easier and more effective to strengthen these pathways while still developing, rather than to try and rebuild them later.
So the question is, if you want your child to be a good reader, when do you start putting effort into that? Well, you start at birth with serve and return and communication, because really reading, writing, it's all communication. It's about communicating information.
A lack of serve and return is one of the causes of the education gap seen in society today.
The most common form of maltreatment is that babies are neglected and young children experience neglect of their basic needs. The absence of stimulation, the lack of sufficient serve and return, means that I can't confirm much, and more than should gets pared away.
Without healthy brain architecture, children are at risk of falling behind and never catching up. Asking elementary schools to fix problems that are rooted in infancy sets schools up to fail and is not the best way to use resources. It's imperative that communities come together to provide at-risk families with the educational and financial support that can make a difference in the lives of infants and preschoolers. Strong communities create strong brain architecture.
I often talk to parents about building scaffolding for their children as they develop. And when we build scaffolding, it's not just the family that's building it, but it's the entire neighborhood and the community.
There are a lot of people in children's lives who help develop that healthy brain architecture by being a part of that serve and return, where the child's brain is being able to think about important and wonderful things.
Okay, I'm going to pause there. Now, there is some doom and gloom and worry that was put into that video, and I don't mean to share that emotion or pass that emotion along with to you. I think the key piece and what I like about this video is how important parent interactions, caregiver interactions are to healthy development in young children. I'm going to go back to my presentation here. And open this up. Okay, so we're back. So the key piece being is that where we start is we want to have this attachment, this healthier relationship with the child and their caregivers. And then we want to create lots of different experiences for them to engage in those healthy bonds, to engage in that healthy attachment, to engage in meaningful interactions, and that they can happen in lots of different ways. And what this video really confirms for us is how important those interactions are for children's development. And so that's the piece, is attachment and bond. Healthy relationship leads to healthy interactions, which leads to then healthy development overall. And so that's the piece to take away here, is we want to increase our positive interactions with kids, and we want to do that in as many ways as we possibly can, because overall that will help kids in their development. Shifting a little bit, I told you we were going to get a little bit nerdy here and talk about the brain, just to get a sense of the science behind this. And why does this matter? Well, what we do know is that brain development is really supported by these types of interactions, by attachment, by this emotional bond between child and caregiver. So interacting with people in touch and responsive relationships and healthy environments, these all alter the way that the brain develops. So when we create an environment that is supportive to this, we help the brain to do what it needs to do to help this child to develop. The brain is great. It's malleable, it's flexible, it changes. We can impact it in different ways. And we do that by modifying our environment, by modifying the way we interact with each other, the way we interact with children, by modifying how we design the space that children in, the activities that children engage in. We really can make wonderful changes if need be, or create a platform or a ground for children having a positive trajectory in how they develop. And so we know that these parent-child or caregiver-child interactions really can change the brain architecture in a positive way. And so then what that tells us in terms of the science behind it is that supporting development, our best practice is supporting development in responsive family involvement. I'm going to pause there, because that's one of those moments where I'm thinking, ugh, but COVID, here we are. It is really hard during these times to create moments to interact with your child on any level, between the work from home and the homeschooling and remote learning and routines being altered. We're home all the time. Some of us are in small spaces. Some of us don't have access to outdoors as much. There is so many variables that impact our ability to engage in these activities with children. And so I understand and I am sensitive and aware of all these challenges. And what I pass along to you is that any moment to engage in your child in a positive way is an important moment and will have a positive impact. Any moment to share in a song or watch a television show together or play chase or do something that's just an interaction with your child is a helpful moment. It doesn't have to be ultimate. It doesn't have to be what it would be in your everyday normal life outside of COVID. It's just thinking about, I should make sure to plan any time to spend with my child engaging in an activity. So some things to think about, and for you, some to-dos is don't forget to hold, smile, cuddle with your baby, with your child, sing, talk, read, dance, practice language development, practice movements, lots of repetition. Try to keep low stress environment, although I know right now it's a little harder than usual. Keep a safe environment, a loving environment. All of these pieces really help to promote healthy development in children. To take it even a step further, that nurturing care, help children to understand and express their emotions. So they might feel frustrated during this time, they might feel angry, they might feel bored. There's lots of different emotions that children can have. Recognizing that and helping children learn what they can do to help manage those emotions in a healthy way. It's really helpful to help maintain some sort of regular routine if you can. It may change from day to day. I know some people have, some schools have hybrid learning, and so there might be some days kids are in school, some days they're not. Some kids are remote learning all day. Try the best you can to establish some sort of a routine that works for you and your family. There's, again, no best routine, but a routine that's going to work for your family. Some might need a more specific structured schedule. Some might need something to be a little bit more flexible and loose. Either are okay, but both are important ways in which we can help support kids in having some sort of regularity and know what to expect. Where I want to launch into next is the importance of play and to allow for opportunities of play. Before I do that, I want to give an opportunity to my colleague to help with translation. And then if there's any questions so far, because we are going to get into the how-to portion of the presentation. Okay, moving forward. So what is play? I could give a course on this over several weeks, but here we only have a few moments. So what I thought I would do is highlight what is play, why is play important, both for children and for caregivers. What we do know about play is there's many stages of play. In the very early years, when we're talking about babies, and you can see that with the little baby here who's somewhat propped up, it's a lot of exploration. How do things work? It's taking their hands and turning them around and mouthing their hands or moving their arms and legs and figuring out how their own body works. And then we give them an object, right? We give them a rattle, we give them a ball, we give them something, and exploring the object. What is this thing? What does it feel like? What does it taste like? How does it move? How do I shake it? How does my body impact this object? And so kids will want to grab at lots of objects that are around them because they're interested in exploring the world. They see something, they're going to want to grab it. They're going to want to explore with it, or they're going to taste it, they're going to mouth it. That is part of typical play. It's about exploring and learning and understanding the world around them. And then from there, they're going to take that object or the things that they find, and they're going to start experimenting with them. Oh, I can drop this. I'm sure many of you parents have had experiences where your child takes something and keeps dropping it. And you're like, oh, and you pick it back up and give it to them. They take it and they drop it, and you pick it back up. That's play. Kids love the drop game. It's that experience of how does something work? How does my body impact it? What do I do with it? Throwing things. Throwing is part of play. We're quick to kind of correct for safety reasons, but throwing is also part of the stages of play. It's child's ability to understand how the world works and how they impact those things that they experience in their everyday life. And so think about that as you're supporting and as you're with your baby or your toddler, is all these things that this child is doing has a purpose, and this is their play. They're trying to understand the world. So if you think about it in that respect, you can then start thinking about what are things that you can do that will help support that in a safe way. So if their child likes to throw things, well, how can we do something with throwing that's going to be safe? Because this child wants to explore what happens when I throw different types of things. And so that's something to think about, is these stages of play. Further to this exploration with objects and this exploration with materials in the world, they start to imitate. Imitation, I should say, is one of our most fundamental learning skills. If you think about your own learning and how you've learned to, say, use the subway or ride the bus, or take a trip somewhere, oftentimes you learn by observing somebody else and then following suit. Imitation is a key learning skill. And so children, what will happen is you will start to see in their play imitation. They start to replicate what they see happening in their own life. So that's where you see kids starting to pretend to use the phone, or they start to use a tablet because they've either experienced it or they've seen someone else use it, or they'll move a truck in a certain way, or they might pretend to clean, or they might pretend to eat. They're going to play in the way that they experience real life. They're going to imitate. And then that play takes on a more in-depth sequence. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's several steps that happen. That play will then start to take on roles. So I'm the mommy in this role, or I'm the brother in this role, or I am Elsa. And so play will start to take on roles, and it becomes pretend play. So the idea here is that play happens in lots of different levels and lots of different stages. And so one of the things that we can be thinking about as we're supporting early development and how we do that is thinking about, what level of play, what stage of play is my child in? What do they typically do? If I give them materials, or if they're at home and I'm not interacting, what are they doing? How are they entertaining themselves? What are they doing? And that's a great place to enter, is by joining wherever they are in their own play. And then that's where we create these teachable moments, which I'll start to get to a little bit later. So thinking about how kids play is really the stage, is really the platform for learning in so many ways. So play is important, play is essential, and play is also a really good indicator of success later on in development and in school, if you're thinking really long term here. Another thing that play does is it helps children to process their emotions and to problem solve. And so play is a great way to practice role playing. Characters can get sad, and we can help them resolve that in play. We can pose problems in play. Oh no, all the blocks fell down. We can build it again and it'll be okay. So when problems happen in play, it's a great opportunity for kids to practice that problem solving. How do I fix it? What do I do with it? And so play is really essential for that as well. And so I encourage you to think about, how does my child play? What level of play are they at? And it's not about age, it's about the developmental level. You could have children playing at different levels, and that's okay, but it's about knowing, how is my child currently playing? How do they interact with toys? How do they interact with the environment? How do they interact with people? And that's a place where we would want to then join or enter into in order to create some teachable moments that will help enhance their development. So play is really critical. I can't say that enough. Have I said it too many times? Play is really, really important. The other piece that's really important about play is what it does for the caregiver or for a parent, for a grandparent, for extended family, for a babysitter. Play can be a really great moment of stress relief. So especially again, we're in this time of COVID, being able to just stop for 5 minutes and have a moment of play with your child, and then go back to what you're doing, and then stop for 5 minutes again, have a moment of play. It can help with stress relief. It can help promote more enjoyable moments with your child. Even little moments of play, even little breaks of play can have real lasting impact and real positive impact on kids. And so I know we all feel busy and stretched and confused and out of sorts. Maybe some of us don't, and that's okay too. But on realizing that play can happen in different amounts of time, in different ways, and to find those quick ways, those moments to enjoy them with your child, because there are teachable moments that can happen in that play. Okay, I'm going to pause here and give my colleague a chance to translate and pause for any questions. Okay, I'm going to be moving forward. So thinking about play and thinking about learning and development, we can be even more effective when we help family members engage in playful activities during their regular family routines, their daily life activities. So family members engaging children in playful activities supports child development, but also when activities are practiced in the context of regular family activities or family routines, we're even more effective in helping children to develop in a healthy way. So what does that mean? Is that when we think about play and we think about how children learn and we think about what's important, interactions, meaningful interactions, positive relationships, we should also be thinking about the activities being a part of our everyday routines. We call these natural learning environments. Activities should be designed for natural learning environments. They should be part of your daily life. We should also support families in brainstorming different ways that they can incorporate this into everyday life. So taking a moment to pause and think about, well, so what does that mean? Play is important. I want my child playing, but I also have to do the laundry. We also need to get their shoes on because we've got to go pick up their brother at school. And I've got to make dinner and I've got to clean up. There's all kinds of life activities that happen, right? And so what I'm telling you here is that you can also have a really positive impact on children's development when you incorporate them into those everyday routines and activities. There's lots of learning moments hidden inside those. And we know that natural environment teaching or natural learning environments really promote positive outcomes in young children. And so it's these two concepts. We want to emphasize play and give children opportunities to play and interact, but we also need to integrate these teachable moments into everyday routines and activities, however way we can. And the partnership or the marriage of those two ideas is what we can do to really promote healthy development in young children. The natural environment, it's not just one place. We talk about it, so it's not just the natural environment is home. That is one piece of a natural environment, but it's also routines. So when I work with families and I say, tell me about your day, what I'm looking to understand is what does your child experience on an everyday basis? What's their normal day? And it's different for every family, totally different for every family. And so some families will say, well, we wake up and we cuddle in bed. Or some families will say, well, we wake up and he gets some tablet time while I get ready. Or we wake up and we immediately we eat breakfast. Okay, there are no wrong or right routines. It's just, what are your routines? And so I encourage you to also think about, well, what are my daily routines on a regular basis? What do I typically do? Now, again, we're in this time of COVID, so it may likely be different than what you would experience, or maybe it's not. But maybe your routine is different now than what it would be. So what is that now? What is my routine? What is my daily life while we're all at home, or at hybrid learning, or we're have different caregivers at different moments? So what is the routine? What do I do on the daily basis? Really think about and reflect, what do I do? What does it look like? When do I do laundry? And when do we brush teeth? When do we make food? What are all the different things that you do across the day? And so what I do is I say, once you know those routines, let's pick one. Let's pick making breakfast, and let's figure out something that you can do while making breakfast that will help enhance the development of your child. That's something to think about. So I encourage you to think about, what are your everyday routines and activities? What do you do on a typical basis? I don't want you to change them. I want you to reflect and think about, what do I typically do? Because we will be more effective if we integrate learning and those teachable moments into what you are already doing. I'm going to keep going because I'm repeating myself here. Okay, so with that idea in mind, we're going to integrate learning into what I'm already doing. This is what we call natural environment teaching. It's where we're creating opportunities to teach within our everyday routines and activities. A couple things to be thinking about as you are processing that. So what are my everyday routines and activities? What does my day look like? What does my morning look like? Got it. All right, I have a sense. What is my child interested in? It's one thing to think about. What do they like? Could I use their preferred activity, their preferred interest, as a way to integrate some teachable moments? Yeah. They often, we use a phrase, or at least I use a phrase, and I often share this with my teacher, is build bridges instead of dangling carrots. And what I mean by that is, when we help children connect what's enjoyable to learning moments, to teachable moments, and see that there's something that they can learn or grow from in an activity they're interested in, will be more impactful than if we say, do this and then you get this. Now, not to say that that's not an effective strategy in some instances, and I certainly use that, but the idea here is that instead of it being, do this and then you can have this activity, or do this and then you can play, think about, well, how can I make this experience enjoyable? How can I incorporate my child's interest into this experience so that the experience is the carrot in a way? How can I make that bridge? How can I connect it so that my child will want to be a part of it? So we think about washing hands. We all have to wash hands these days. A lot of times kids have to wash hands. Okay, some kids might not mind it. They like the water play. So maybe we use the water play and developing bubbles and blowing bubbles and getting a little bit messy with that soap while they're washing their hands. And as we do it, we say, wash, wash, wash your hands. And we start to use some language to associate it with it. Or maybe there's a song that we can sing while washing hands to promote language during this activity. Or maybe we just say, look, hand, it's a hand. And then we say, your hand, and here's your fingers. And then we count them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. And we do a high five. And we go back to washing, and we wash really fast. And we wash really slow. And we wash really fast. And we wash really slow. The idea here is that washing hands is an everyday routine activity, at least these days, that we have to do. So can we make it enjoyable by connecting our child's interest into it, and then use that as a moment to teach, right? So we're teaching about, like, the label hands. We're teaching maybe some counting. We're modeling singing and more language to describe what we're doing. Or we might turn the water on and off. What does on and off mean? It's on and off. On and off, right? So a little bit of repetition. So this is something I want you to be thinking about. So it's okay, what are my everyday routines and activities? How can I make it enjoyable for my child to want to do it or be involved in it? And then, as a third layer here, what can I teach them while doing that? That's natural environment teaching. That is where children are going to make the most progress, when they're interested and it's a part of their everyday life. It's contextual, it makes sense to them. That's where we see the most development. Another thing to be thinking about is that if you have a child where you have particular goals that you're working on with them, maybe it's goals around communication, maybe it's goals around motor, so maybe walking or fine motor skills. There could be lots of different goals that kids might be working on. We have differing abilities here. Think about, well, how can I practice that while I'm doing this activity? How can I integrate it? How can I make it so that I'm maximizing practice and creating more teachable moments during my everyday routines and activities? So those are two kind of tricks here, is what is my child interested in? How can I make it enjoyable? And what are some of the goals that they're working on, and how can I integrate that into what we're doing in our everyday life? Maybe Buzz Lightyear needs his hands washed too. That's okay, right? Maybe Elsa also needs to have her hair brushed. Or maybe Paw Patrol needs to put on his shoes too. So what is my child interested in? Can I connect it into what we would typically do on an everyday basis? Okay. I'm going to pause there and give a moment for questions and to look at the chat. There's actually a really good question here. I love that. I want to address right away. One parent asked, I have 4 children of different ages. How do I get them to play harmoniously together? Yeah, that is a big question for so many families. One of the things I think about is, well, what level of play are each of those children at? And do I have materials or an activity that would allow me to differentiate between those different levels? And it's a hard question to answer specifically because I don't know the ages, but that's something I would be thinking about, is can I design an activity where each child has a role, or there's something to do with each child, at some level for each child. For an older child, it might be role playing, or it might be being a helper, or it might be coming up with the schedule for the day, or what the little kids are going to do, right? Older kids love being the big brother, the big sister. They love kind of acting like a parent. And so let them do that a little bit. Let them role play that a little bit. That's okay. So be thinking about, what are the different levels that my child or my children are at, and can I create an activity, or do I have materials that would help with each of those different levels? And that's how you'll get more harmony playing together. So each child is being stimulated at the level that they're at. I see some more questions coming in that I want to just be mindful of. There's a question about some behavior. I'm going to hold off on that and I'll address it a little bit later, but I will get to it. Okay. All right, so moving forward, play. Let's get into some examples. We're already at 5:45. I knew this would go by quickly. Some examples. If we're working on some goals for communication, for example, your child might be thirsty. That's an opportunity to say, let's go get something to drink in the kitchen, and bring them with you. Show them how you get the drink. Show them how to pour, and then show them and model for them how to say the word juice or drink or water, or use sign language, or exchange a picture. Some children might be using pictures to communicate, or a gesture, maybe how to point before giving them. So you model the word water and you point, and then you give it to them. So giving them an opportunity to practice in a moment that's authentic. They're thirsty, they want to drink. Let's practice saying or pointing or using a picture to request that I want to drink. That's one example. Engage a child in movement activities at the playground. So a lot of us are going on walks or trying to get some park time while we can because we're inside. So use that as an opportunity to work on motor skills, climbing and running and jumping, even fast and slow movements. Hanging by the bars is really great for fine motor skills, for strengthening. So hanging, how long can you hang? Let's count. And you count to however hard they can hold till. Of course, you're holding them so they don't fall. But think about, can I integrate some practice on these motor skills that I want to work on during our trip to the playground or to the park? While you're reading books or you're playing with puzzles or you're watching a cartoon or on the tablet. The key pieces, I get this all the time. What do you think about cartoons? What do you think about tablets? Is it detrimental? Should I not let my child watch TV? And what I say to that is, it's not about the TV. It's not about the tablet. It's about the interaction. So remember at the beginning of this, I had indicated how important interactions are and that bond and that attachment. If you are watching the cartoon with your child, if you're engaging in the tablet with your child and you're pointing at pictures or you're commenting on what's happening or you're giving expression like, oh, look what happened. What are they going to do? Adding, animating it a little bit. That can be a really meaningful activity. So I don't want to say, don't watch television or don't use a tablet. You can. It's okay, especially right now when we're all trying to come up with things to do with our kids at home. The key piece is interact with it, do it with them, and use that as an opportunity to enhance language by labeling what they see or asking them to tell you or asking them to show you. If you say, where's the dog? Can they point to the dog? Or maybe it's just an opportunity for you to model language or model signs if you have a child who's learning signs, or maybe it's an opportunity to practice using their pictures for communication. So they see what's in a book, they see what's on a tablet, they see what's on TV, and you show them the pictures of those items. So these can be meaningful moments. It's okay to use these things as long as they're interactive. That's the key piece here. While you're getting dressed, labeling the clothes, socks, pants, labeling the parts. It's a pocket. Oh, look, put something in the pocket and surprise them. Oh, look what's in the pocket. They're learning the word pocket. There's an element of surprise. They're learning whatever the item is that's in the pocket. That surprise piece makes getting dressed a little more fun. Ooh, I want to get dressed because there's going to be a surprise in the pocket. I'm brainstorming here. The idea is make it enjoyable and practice labeling or identifying these items of clothing or while you're getting dressed, your legs, right? Incorporate this while you're getting dressed. Songs. I can't say enough about songs. I used to be a singer. I love singing. I think singing with kids is really powerful. Kids usually love songs. A lot of times kids will learn communication, will learn to speak through songs first. Sometimes we find that kids will sing before they actually speak. I think it's a really powerful tool. So using songs to help promote communication, but also using songs to help with routines. So back to the hand washing routine, you can easily say something like, everybody wash their hands, wash their hands, wash their hands. I'll save you from more of it, but the idea being is use a song, make up your own words, make it silly, make it enjoyable to enhance the routine that you're doing with your child. It also is a good opportunity to practice imitation. We usually do gestures to the words of the songs. It's a great opportunity for the child to imitate, to follow along with you. It's a key learning skill, imitation, teaching them, oh, I follow people and I learn how to do things. Songs is a really great way to do that. You can also practice imitation while they're watching those videos or cartoons or on the tablet. Practice doing it in really silly ways. I'm giving you a few examples, and there are so many more. I could sit with a wall and a dry erase board and a marker and just go at it. If we were in a more dynamic setting where we could have a free brainstorm, I would do that. And I would say, tell me your ideas. Let's go. What else can we teach? What else can we do? The key piece being, make it interactive, make it enjoyable, and think about what it is that you want your child to be working on at any developmental level, at any ability. Those are the key pieces. Your key overall goal is to give your child these opportunities to experience these moments throughout the whole day. Repetition. Repetition is really critical. Checking time. I'm going to give my colleague a moment to translate if need be. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So we only have about 10 minutes. I had an idea that this might go, I might have more to say than what we have time. But let's delve into communication a little bit. And so there are different ways that kids can learn to communicate. Requesting, being able to say what you want and need, labeling, pointing out what you see, following instructions or understanding language, reciprocal conversation, our motor imitation, and then verbal imitation. These are different elements of communication that we often will work on with young children. And so in thinking about this broken down into more examples, you're working on requesting. You can easily model for the child to say, I want juice. Or if they're in a moment of distress and you know they want something, but they can't say it, think about, well, how can I teach my child what to say and do in this moment so they can get that need met? Now, of course, if it's something they can't have at that moment, that's a different strategy. But if it's something that they can have and they just don't have a way to express it, model for them. Use that moment as a teachable moment. They want that toy, they can't reach it. They're whining and reaching and they want it. So at that moment, when they want that toy that's too high on the shelf, say to them, model for them, ball or doll or a point. Show them how to point, help them physically point, and then give it to them. Use that moment of desire when they want something as an opportunity to show them how to do it, how to request. Same with labeling. When you are in your everyday routine and activity, naming everything that you see. If you're out on a walk or you're going to pick up the sibling from school, labeling, bus, taxi, dog, motorcycle, animating a little bit, so fast, giving a little interest to it. It helps that child hear what language sounds like, hear where it's used, how to use it in a social situation. So to be able to point something out and join in with somebody else to say, did you see what I see? Isn't that cool? Right? And so using your usual routine of walking to pick up the sibling from school as an opportunity to practice labeling, pointing out everything that you see as many times as you possibly can. The more you repeat it, the more you do it, eventually you're going to start to see your child imitate you, or they'll gravitate towards those familiar things that you were pointing out, because every day you're picking the sibling up from school, or maybe in hybrid learning 3 days a week, and you're doing these same kinds of teachable moments, and they start to get used to it and they start to acquire this as a skill. That's the key, is you don't have to sit with flashcards and have them name everything on the flashcard. You can go on a walk and label everything that's on that walk that you take every day. Or you can just sit in a park or play at the playground and name everything. Look at the sky, the trees, birds, label everything that you see. All that repetition in their everyday routine will have lasting impact. Similarly, so we call listener responding or following directions, giving your child simple instructions during routines. Let's turn on, or let's turn on the water. And so you show them what turning on the water means. And then you say, let's get soap. And you point to the soap. Where's the soap? Hopefully they point or they grab for it. So they are following your instruction to identify the soap, right? Giving them opportunities to follow those instructions and routines helps with receptive language. Similarly, with reciprocal conversation. In the early years, kids learn reciprocal conversation, that idea of back and forth, by songs, filling in words to songs. The wheels on the bus go round and then pausing. It's a teachable moment, creating moments of pause. They learn it by being on a swing, holding up and going up, 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 waiting, and then modeling down and let go. And then after a few repetitions of that, and you say up, 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 eventually pause and give your child an opportunity to try to say down or say da, or some sort of indication that they're filling in the next thing to say. That's the beginning of reciprocal conversation, is those moments of pause and the child fills in. And then it gets into more question and answer as they get older. What did you have for breakfast? What did you play with? What's your name? How old are you? The Q&A type stuff. That happens later. But in the early years, they need to know that reciprocity. I speak, there's a moment of pause and excitement, and then you speak, and something really fun happens. And then I speak, and there's that pause and excitement, and then you speak, and something fun happens. So creating those moments during your usual activities helps with reciprocal conversation. We've talked a lot about motor imitation and verbal imitation. Again, modeling, and giving your child an opportunity to imitate back, learning that I watch what you do and I try it. I watch and I do, I watch and I do, I watch and I do. And that's a critical learning skill for how they'll learn many other things. I have a video here, but we only have 4 minutes. So I'm going to skip the video. But what I could do, and I can talk with Kylie after this, is maybe send some links to video examples for you to see this. One thing that families say to me is, I only have 5 minutes. I only have 10 minutes, or all time is important. So even if you have 5 minutes, I kind of think about like when people say you should work out more. Well, I don't have time to work out. Well, if you had 15 minutes, you could do this, right? We always have like, you need to do something in a short amount of time. So what I would recommend is, even if you have 5 minutes, 5 minutes is enough to take a break and sing some songs with your child, or to play chase around your apartment, or do some jumping jacks, or do some other kind of exercise, just a quick break, so that you're having a moment of interaction with your child that you can then use as an opportunity to embed some teachable moments in there. If you have 15 minutes, a little bit longer, it's enough to do some toy play. So getting out a toy and engaging in that activity with them, or making a snack, or going for a quick walk. If you have 30 minutes, it's a much more significant period of time. So think about reading stories, engaging in more elaborate pretend play if you have an older child, or cooking projects. If you have a baby, lots of exploratory play, tummy time, exploration with objects, movement, songs, and maybe lots of little 5-minute activities fill up a 30-minute activity, or 30-minute amount of time. Any amount of time that you have is going to be valuable in any way that you provide it. And so I encourage you, even if you have little moments of time, find those moments to interact and create these teachable moments. It enhances your child's learning and development. But it's not, if you don't have this time, you still have natural environment teaching. You still can embed learning into these everyday routines and activities. It's just a matter of knowing, well, where is my child developmentally? What do I want them to be able to achieve? And how can I integrate that into what we typically do on an everyday basis? So the big message here being, use both, to provide these teachable moments, both play and natural environment teaching as a means to enhance development and encourage healthy development. It's all about interaction. Interaction. I can't say it enough. So whatever your routines are, It's all about interacting and creating those teachable moments within those routines, and doing it in a playful, enjoyable way. That's it for now. We have just a few moments, and I know there's an evaluation that has to happen. I'm going to look at the questions and just see if there's anything major that stands out that I think would be applicable to the larger group. So there's a question here about a parent feeling, and I hope I'm interpreting this correctly, feeling overwhelmed in changing and doing something differently. What I would recommend is you don't have to do anything different. Just think about what's your usual routines and activities, and how can I incorporate my child into that? What do I do with my child anyway on an everyday basis? And how can I enhance it by by interacting in a little bit more, by emphasizing a little bit more of what we're doing? You get your child dressed every day, I think. So use that as an opportunity to practice labeling clothes, labeling body parts, singing songs while you're getting dressed. It's an opportunity that has endless teachable moments. It's just a matter of being creative and thinking of it while you're doing it. So let the activity in and of itself be a learning opportunity, a teachable moment, versus I got to get my child dressed so that they can go do something else. Getting dressed can be the activity. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and how do I incorporate this or change this or do something different, don't do anything different. Just think about what are your usual routines and how can you enhance them a little bit? How can you add to them? And that's what I would recommend there. I see a question here about a child with autism who has echolalia. They also get some ABA and they want to learn more ways to help. There's a lot. I actually happened to do ABA training for our organization. I was an ABA provider for many, many, many years. So I'm quite familiar with this population and that strategy and those strategies. Natural environment teaching is where I always emphasize for families. I'm not looking, when I was doing ABA, I never looked for a family to replicate what I was doing as someone who has had lots and lots of training and practice in implementing those strategies. What I wanted the family to always learn is what do I typically do with my child and how can I enhance it? How can I add to it? Because those teachable moments, again, and I sound like a broken record, is what makes a big difference. And your impact on your child through those natural routines is going to be everlasting. It will have great impact. So think about, again, your usual routines. How can you add to them? How can you enhance those routines and creating those teachable moments? I'm looking to see if there's anything else. So I think I got to most of the questions that were posted here. I'm looking to see. So there is a note in the chat. You can call Include NYC helpline. There's a number for those of you who speak Spanish as well. You could fill a help request form if you didn't get your question asked or your need met in this presentation. You could also stay for a moment and there's an evaluation here, which I hope that you fill out. We greatly appreciate it. And I think that's it. I should have just popped up on your screen and just see if there's anything else. I don't think so. Okay, yeah, so there's an evaluation here. If you can quickly fill that out. I hope that you found this valuable. Like I said, I probably could spend weeks delving into this topic, but my goal here is to hopefully inspire you to think about think about the importance of interactions with children and how you can use their play and your everyday routines and activities as teachable moments to enhance their development at any level, any ability for both parent and child. How can you just add? How can you just add a little bit to your usual routine and create those teachable moments. Okay, thank you everybody, and I appreciate you coming tonight.